Hey guys, what's up and welcome to the channel. I'm the Shotgun Shogun and this is another episode of Reingar's Crash Course. Today we are going to be talking about 3-star artifacts and which ones you should keep and which ones are pretty much safe to get rid of. Now, a lot of people overlook the 3-star artifacts because, well, they're not 4 or 5-star artifacts, and unfortunately in gacha games, a lot of people see bigger numbers of stars and think that that is just immediately better. However, some of the 3-star artifacts in this game are some of the best artifacts in this game. So I want to go over the ones that I like. We're going to go over every one of them, where they're situational, and what you should be doing in order to keep these. Now, let's start off here at the top with Grail of Blood. Now, what wishes may be granted by this death goblet that holds the blood of so many victims? At max level, this is going to recover health equal to 20% of the caster's attack at the start of the turn. Effect is increased by 50% when the caster's health is below 30. Now, that means that if you're below 30% health, you're going to be getting back 40% of your attack at the start of the turn. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's quite a bit of health that I'll be getting back. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't stacked too high with just base attack. A lot of times it will be split between attack and crit damage. And if that's the case, then you are probably going for a heavier attack build, which you really wouldn't need the survivability from this. However, one thing that I did in the past was I ran a maxed out copy of this on Gunther, who inherently has a much higher attack. You can get Gunther up to like 8,000 attacks. So at the beginning of every turn, lots of survivability on him. And it does really, if you ran into that, you would probably be like, wait, what? Grail of Blood? Are you kidding me? On Gunther? Really weird. So it does have a good split of enhanced stats as well, with health being a little bit higher than attack. So this is definitely not a priority, but something in the future if you wanted to play around with characters who have inherently high attack ratings and you just want to throw people off. Now, up next is going to be Egg of Delusion, and this is going to increase your defense by 20% when health is more than 50%. So this is going to be really good for the initial barrage, keeping you up above, 50%, taking less damage. This is going to be pretty good for the likes of Wyvern 11 on your tank to really reduce that initial hit, the initial 50% of life there. Now, one of the downsides is that once you go past 50% health, then your defense is going to drop quite a bit. This is also really good on characters whose damage scales off of defense. So you will be doing a bit more damage. They'll be a bit more tanky. It will be harder to get them down past 50%. So they will be able to keep that. And if you do have healers to back those characters up, then this should be on for the vast majority of the time. Next, we have Prophetic Candlestick, and this is a very important artifact. When maxed out, it has a 40% chance to reduce the cooldowns by 1 turn when attacked, and this can only be activated once per turn. Now, let's say you have characters like Angelic Mont, who have very low cooldowns on their heals, and they're very fast. Now, if you're getting attacked, that you have the 40% chance to reduce that cooldown so that your healers will be able to heal quite a bit more. This is also really good to run on Angelica if you are using Angelica as your Wyvern 11 tank, because she will be getting attacked exclusively, which means that she should have her cooldowns up very regularly in order to heal herself. You will have Ancient Sheath next, and this at max just increases the damage dealt by your basic skills by 16%. This is a flat 16% increased damage on your S1. Now, you might be thinking, wow, 16% damage, that's really good. I like extra 16% damage. However, a lot of characters don't typically use their S1s as much as rotating their S3 into their S2 and then using S1 for maybe 1-2 turns while you wait for your cooldowns. This would potentially be beneficial on a DJ Basar, because he does use his S1 quite regularly. Characters with a long cooldown S3 and a passive S2 could benefit from this, but typically there is a better artifact that you could use in place of this. Next up is Ranon's Memorandum, and a memorandum that contains all the records of magic researched by this guy. Now, this one's actually really good on the likes of Curus for poison stacking, Angelic Mott, Ruzid, quite a bit of others, characters that are already speedy, but need to be even more speedier. This is going to be for mostly support characters that need to go Sanic fast. Now, at max level, this increases your speed by 2% after attacking. Now, yes, you do have to attack, and you will get this stacked 10 times. So the faster you go, the faster you go. So you can get an extra 20% speed when this is max stacked. Now in PvP, this is not as good as many other artifacts. However, when you're doing bosses that are going to take extensive amounts of time, abyss levels, this is really, really good on your characters that you need to have go quickly. So this is definitely a prime 3-star artifact to max out. Not only that, but if you're stacking it on support characters, as you can see on the screen here, you do have 663 extra health, which will help make your healers who need to go fast, Tamrins, Amons, a lot thicker. Next up will be Atma's Portal, and at max level this has a 20% chance to decrease skill cooldowns of all allies by 1 turn at the start of battle. This is pretty bad. You do have to, it's at the start of battle, so at the start of battle means that, let's say you start the level, each wave is the start of battle, so you only have a 20% chance to decrease the cooldowns of all your allies by 1 turn at the start of each of those waves. This is not good. I haven't seen anybody use this. I personally have never used this. Definitely a dust fodder artifact. Next up is Alsacian Spear. Decrease combat readiness by 5% after a single attack. Now, this can be used fairly well on the likes of a Trainer Guard or characters that are going very, very fast. Now, there are other things that you can use here, but if you need to lock one character down, you can definitely use this. 5% decrease after a single attack. Couple that with any other combat readiness decreases, and you will be delaying your enemy quite a bit. This is not a primary priority artifact, but it is a good one to keep around just in case you want to play around with it. Next up is Labyrinth Cube. 20% chance to increase the caster's combat readiness by 15% at the end of the enemy's turn. Now, this is pretty interesting and can definitely put a kink in the gears of many PvP teams. Most of the time, PvP teams are very, very heavily based on who is going at what time. If you're not going fast, you're going last. So this has a 20% chance on each one of the enemy's turns to increase your combat readiness by 15%, which is pretty solid, meaning that you can potentially just keep getting turn after turn after turn after turn, because there's no internal cooldown on this that says you can only use it once per your turns. So it's very, very interesting. I have ran this previously in the past with like a Gerardo in order to really just mess with the enemy team. Cursed Compass. This is going to be a very high priority artifact if you plan on running PvP in the future. Now, a lot of times with cleave teams, you set up the cleave with debuffing the enemy and then going into your cleavers. This increases your effectiveness by 50% for 1 turn at the start of battle. Now, you just need that one and done if you're cleaving, so using this on characters that need very high effectiveness in order to land their debuffs or their buff removal is very, very key. So making sure that you have a maxed out copy of this, at least one, is very important. Next up is Sword of the Morning, and this is going to increase your attack and speed by 20% when health is less than 50%. This is very good in the fact that you want to put this on a tanky bruiser who may be sticking below 50%, a character that has in a lifesteal or a lifesteal set, as you will be getting a 20% speed and attack increase whenever you are riding that fine line of 50% or lower. Now, this is good. There are other artifacts that are higher tier that replace it. This is good in place of things like Sigurd's Scythe, Durandal, or El's Fist is another one, but this is a very good cheap low-level artifact that can give you that extra edge, my bad, when you are lower than 50%. Mighty Yakasha. And this is going to increase attack and defense by 10% when your health is more than 50%. Unfortunately, the 10% attack and defense is split, so you would use this on a tanky bruiser, but there's just better artifacts for that, and this one really falls by the wayside even for a 3-star, as you don't really want to put all of the effort in to get this thing maxed out. I personally just use these as dust fodder. Next up will be Devil's Brand, and at max level this increases effect resist of all allies by 4% at the start of the turn. Effect can only stack up to 5 times. Now that still is 20% effect resistance. And that is pretty big, especially if you're running a team that is just heavy effect resist, heavy hit points, a wall team that is just there to make sure that the enemy dies from just being there. So one of the big things here is that you will need to have this maxed out. You will want to have this on a character that is going to be pretty speedy. Now, this would be good on the likes of an Angelic Mott. However, you would want to run Ranon's Owen or Memorandum on her, or many other ones. This could be good on the likes of a Ruzid if you're using Ruzid in order to CR push, because he will be very fast and this will stack endlessly, or not endlessly, but 5 times. So this would be really, really good for tanky comps. The other thing too is you do get 754 health off of this, so it just makes your supporters even tankier. Next up will be Goblin's Lamp, and this heals the ally with the lowest health by 20% at the beginning of the battle. Now, again, this is one of those ones that does something at the beginning of battle and is going to not be very good because you can't use it other than once per turn, and a 20% heal for the lowest person from wave to wave is not worth it. Dust fodder Goblin Lamps. Next up will be the Aqua Rose, and this is a 50% chance to grant a barrier to the caster equivalent to 10% of their max health for 1 turn when attacked. This can only be granted once every 2 turns. This is really good for making tanky characters tankier. You do get 845 health off of this, so every 2 turns you can expect a very, very chunky barrier, but there are other artifacts that you could be using in place of this. You do get it every 2 turns. A lot of times your tanks are very slow, meaning that you won't be getting those 2 turns very fast. So they will just hit you, burn your shield down, and then you have 2 turns to wait while they just beat on your character. Ascending Axe, and this increases critical hit chance of the caster by 10% after making a critical hit chance. This can only stack up to 3 times. Now, a lot of times in this game, you're going to want to have 100% chance to crit. You don't want to rely on an artifact maxed out to increase your crit hit chance after you have hit critically. Very mediocre artifact, definitely not worth your time. Next up is Exorcist Tonfas, and this is going to be one of the staple 3-star artifacts that you will want to have multiple maxed copies of. So at max level, increases damage dealt by 16% when the enemy's health is more than 50%. Now this is good on bosses because a lot of times it's going to take you quite a while to get through them. So if you do have this, you can use this on bosses, helps you get to that 50% mark. Where this really shines, however, is going to be in PvP. You want to have the heaviest amount of attack when you are hitting them right out of the gate. This is going to be pretty much a staple of almost every cleave team. Your cleaver will need to have a plus 30 Exorcist Tonfa, or, well, Exorcist Tonfa. That's going to be the one that you're going to have readily available. So this one is a core 3-star artifact that you should always max out. Speaking of core 3-star artifacts, let's talk Daydream Joker. I have 3 of these at plus 30. Max level, this is going to increase your damage dealt by 3% of the enemy's max health. This is going to make things like hunts, raids, future world boss content just an absolute breeze. This is a 100% max this out, and it is going to make a lot of things very, very easy. Now, this isn't going to be very good in PvP because 3% of a enemy player's health is going to be a lot less than a boss, meaning that the Exorcist Tonfa's 16% is going to be doing quite a bit more than Daydream Joker, even on some of the beefier tanks. This is a core artifact. Never dust these until you have multiple maxed copies. Next up will be Butterfly Mandolin, and this has an 8% chance to be granted an extra turn at the end of the next turn when attacked. Now, 8%, not very high. Now, you could get that extra turn at the end of the next turn when you're attacked, but this one is a very odd artifact. It's somewhat of a bootleg R&L in that it gives you extra turns, but 8% is a very, very low chance when you could have another artifact in place that will just give you more than that potential extra turn. Envoy's Pipe. I really enjoy this one on my tank characters. Decreases damage received by 20% when health is less than 50%. When more than one similar effect is granted, only the strongest effect is applied. Now, this is a flat 20% decrease in all damage when you are lower than 50%. As I said before, as a tank, you should be able to not get one shot when you're under 50%. This will help you out in the likes of Wyvern 11, again, because most people, all they hear is Wyvern 11. This is really good, though, for characters like Angelica to soak up even more damage and really help you have that staying power. You also get 754 health out of this to make you even beefier. Next up is going to be Timeless Anchor, and I actually really, really enjoy this one. 50% chance to dispel one debuff when attacked. Now, there are other artifacts like Crimson Seed that says once per turn. There is no once per turn modifier on this. This means that you have a 50% chance to dispel one debuff when you're attacked. Easy peasy. Put this on a tank and they will be pretty much the Teflon Don. No debuffs are going to be sticking to them. This is really, really good for characters like Apocalypse Ravi, regular Ravi, your tanky bruisers that if they do get defense broken, they are going to just melt like paper. So this is really, really good to help mitigate that extra chance for those debuffs. Next up is Forest Totem. 20% chance to grant continuous healing for 2 turns when attacked. This can only be activated once every 2 turns. Now, you would at first think, man, that's really good. Continuous healing for 2 turns when attacked, and it can go every 2 turns. I'm going to have this up regularly. It really doesn't proc that often. 20% chance is pretty good, but you are going to be getting attacked on the regular. Continuous healing is pretty solid, but there are other better ways, in my opinion, in order to mitigate that damage, such as Envoy's Pipe or the Egg of Delusion, things like that, to increase your overall stats and not really have to worry about that. Not only that, but you could run Grail of Blood and get 20% chance or 20% of your overall attack every turn. Don't have to worry about procs. You do get a lot of hit points off of this, however. And up next is another key staple, a key artifact, Oath Key. What does it do? Increases your hit chance by 20% at max level. Now, in order to explain what that is, let's talk Moonlight Dreamblade, Fat Cat, Mursa, Arbiter Vildred with that Moonlight Dreamblade, and a lot of other things that are very, very gross. So, a lot of these characters have Evade. What helps with Evade? Hit chance. So this will overcome hit chance as well as elemental disadvantage when calculating whether or not you are going to hit. A lot of people in a higher arena run a Moonlight Dreamblade on characters so that they have that extra percent to evade your stuff, and they also get attack off of that. So this came about as a really, really good way to negate that benefit. A lot of people will run an Assassin Cartusia for the 15% evasion to the entire team. This on your cleaver completely negates that and lets you hit everything. You can also use this to bring characters that will be potentially at an elemental disadvantage, and this will cover the mischance that is given by that elemental disadvantage. So there you have it, folks. Those are the 3-star artifacts. The priority artifacts that you should 100% plus 30 Prophetic Candlestick, a Ranon's Memorandum, the Cursed Compass, Exorcist Tonfa, Daydream Joker, Timeless Anchor, and Oath Key. Really good ones are Envoy's Pipe. The Aqua Rose is okay. Devil's Brand, really interesting. Labyrinth Cube, again, a very interesting. And Egg of Delusion. Those are a lot of the artifacts that I really like. Again, Atma's Portal, Mighty Akasha, Goblin Lamp, Ascending Axe, Forest Totem, Butterfly Mandolin. Those are ones that you can sell for dust in order to buy runes in order to level up your other artifacts. So there you guys have it. A lot of people don't think that 3-star artifacts are very good. They complain about them all the time. Personally, Daydream Joker is on every single one of my PvE characters my PvE DPS characters. Exorcist Tonfas are a staple in PvP. Timeless Anchor, very interesting. Oath Key, whenever you're doing PvP, that's very, very important. These are artifacts that actually don't have a higher tier replacement. These are things that Exorcist Tonfa does, but it was a collab thing, so don't even worry about that. If somebody tells you about a portrait, just you can't get it at the moment. But these are a lot of the artifacts that really don't have a replacement. They're cheapish to level. You're going to be getting quite a bit of them as you pull. So I hope that this has helped open your eyes to the 3-star artifacts that you should be investing in this game. Stars don't always matter, except for you, because you are the real stars. I hope that you guys did find this helpful. If you did, share this out, as I am trying to fight the YouTube algorithm, as they don't really show anybody my Epic 7 stuff. If you know people who are new, that they don't really know anything about this, share this out to them as well, because I want to help the community get a lot of their knowledge out there. If there's a topic that you want to see covered, just let me know and I will cover it in the next Reingar's Crash Course. But again, I hope this has helped you out. If it has, like, fave, and subscribe, and do all of the other YouTuber things that they ask you to do. And I will catch you on the next one. Take it easy, homies. Peace.